Today on the podcast, we have Paul from Rocker Gaming. If you haven't heard of Paul from Rocker Gaming, it's because he never shows his face in his videos. And we have the privilege and honor of actually seeing his face on our podcast today, which I'm very excited about. Welcome, Paul. Nice to see you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It's great to be on with you guys.
Sweet. So I really want to dive into Rocker Gaming and what exactly it is that you do. But first, I have to say how we kind of discovered you. You were like the first one on Twitter that was like really active in the makerspace. We've been like actively pursuing people on Twitter, but you're one of the very first people that was like, oh, hey, yeah, I definitely know who Alumilite is. Oh, hey, let's definitely hang out and chat. But then I can't remember if it was Taylor or Sydney that shared one of your videos with me, but I was literally in Carline dropping off my kids watching one of your YouTube videos where you're using your wife's makeup to customize a Gamecube controller, the buttons on a Gamecube controller. And I was like, who is this guy? And also, this is amazing. I didn't even know you could do this with our products. I mean, I knew like that people could do literally whatever they can come up with, but I had not seen this application yet when it comes to like restoring old controllers. So how the heck did you come up with this? Where did you discover this? How is this a thing that you do? You gotta unpack all those things and give me the full story, Paul.
Yeah, so let me just start with saying that I'm still getting lashings for that video. So let's just say everything's not so sound at the household because of that.
So good.
No,
good.
All joking aside, I made sure I replenished all of that makeup and then some. So let's be honest, the text right up there is okay too. So hey, it could be a lot worse. But for me, it was like I'm always finding new and creative ways. At least my goal is to try to push things as far as I can and try to do something different. And what's something that people haven't seen before? And so for me, it's like, how can I do that? And what mediums can I come up with to apply that to, Alumilite products or whatever, and how can I take that to the next level? And so that was kind of the impetus for that. I mean, I saw like, obviously, the nails, like, powder and all that other stuff. And I was like, that's pretty legit. I think this would look awesome in a set of buttons. And it kind of did.
it did look very cool. I was genuinely at the end of the video was like, holy cow, these look incredible. Like, and they had like a nice tone and they reflected light really well. And Absolutely. It looked like the texture worked really well from like for button feel for gaming still, which is great.
Yeah, I agree. So, so like you were asking about Gamecube controllers, and Gamecube is probably the thing I'm the most known for. While I do tons of other like retro systems and stuff like that, Gamecube's probably the thing I'm the most known for, specifically with, Gamecube controllers. So like when Smash Ultimate came out in like probably December of 2018, I kind of just went all in. Like I wanted to, at that point in time, I was sitting there and again, I had a diverse set of consoles and controllers that I was working on, but I was like, hey, I really want to commit myself to something, you know what I'm saying? And be more well-known for something. And sure enough, I was just playing that game constantly. I mean, I was logging, tons of hours on it. And I was like, you know what? I kind of think this is, a path forward for me where I can do something different. So, I mean, it's funny, I've been doing, obviously the buttons like you saw. I've been doing controller shells with the Alumilite Clear as well. Been doing a lot of different things. And then, for me, it's like, it didn't even stop at necessarily the making of the buttons and the shells. And, it got into like the making, like I custom fab PCBs and do some electrical engineering and stuff like that to actually like take things to the next level. So like, for me, it was like, you mentioned your kids earlier, right? So I have two kids too, right? I've got two very young kids. And like, originally I would do custom consoles and stuff like that for people. And that was great. I loved doing that. It was a lot of fun. But very quickly I realized, as I'm sure you do, once you have kids, it's game over. That time is gone. It is gone.
It doesn't exist anymore. When people joke about free time, I'm just like, that's not a thing that I get to experience, right?
No, not at all. It's like, it doesn't exist at all. And so I was like sitting there and I'm like, okay, what can I do to still do the things that I enjoy and still like, be able to, share my knowledge and my experience and all those things with other people and that's how the YouTube channel was born, because I was like, I
Okay.
really want to like allow people to experience these things and pass that knowledge forward. Right.
Okay.
And then sure enough, from there, kind of like originally started with just like kind of more electrical type stuff, right? Like doing video mods, doing audio mods, doing, LED mods, things like that, to consoles, which generally involve soldering, which I know is outside of our space here, but
Oh,
eventually
that's quite all right. Please tell us all the details. We want to hear all the details.
Sure. And then eventually that led into the whole idea of like sitting there and being like, okay, how can I take fabrication, right, to the next level? And how can I make it even more custom and spend more time on a project than I would ever normally spend? And then that led into, okay, I need to start making, silicone molds, and I need to start casting things, and I need to, take things to the next level like that. Now, eventually it led into like, now I'm like 3D printing custom parts and making silicone molds of those custom 3D printed parts, and then doing cool stuff with the resin to make effects and things like that people have never seen before. So like, it's funny, you guys work with some amazing creators. Like, I mean, honestly, like if I think of like, Zach Higgins or Peter Brown or some people like that, like they have no relation to the game space whatsoever, but these are extremely creative people who do a fantastic job. And like, they were a huge motivation to me watching them make some really cool things. And I was like, there's nobody doing this in the gaming space.
No.
Nobody. And I was like, even now people complain like that the manufacturers don't make cool enough controllers or consoles or whatever. And people are always clamoring over these custom editions. So it's just like, why don't we just take that and take it to the next level? And so that's kind of what I'm trying to do right now.
Awesome. So you've been a gamer for most of your life, I would guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I mean, I started probably when I was 5 years old. I mean, as an 80s kid, right? I mean, I trying to think. I mean, the first console I had, you've probably never even heard of. It's an Atari Lynx.
I think you might be making assumptions about my age that I'm an 80s kid as well.
Excellent. So you do know the Atari Lynx.
I do.
Oh yeah. Excellent. Even better. So yes, that was my first console, and my first gaming experience was on that. And then honestly, like, eventually got the Super Nintendo for Christmas and went from there. Did you play many games when you were younger?
I love the Super Nintendo. The first one that I actually owned wasn't until the N64. And that is only because my parents were like, no video games, that kind of thing. But so I mowed lawns to buy my very first console, which was an N64. And I got James Bond 007. And oh my goodness, did I put hours into that game. I was like one of those like secretly nerdy kids. I was an athlete, but then I was a huge, big book nerd and gamer and all that kind of stuff on the side. Like I did Warhammer figurines, like that kind of stuff. Awesome. I did not tell any of my, my teammates on the basketball team or any of that kind of stuff. Because at that time, being a nerd was different than the athlete. I think they've definitely merged now a lot more in culture, which is very cool in my eyes.
I agree. And honestly, what a way to start with 007 and the N64. I mean, it's just such a classic. I mean, talk about a perfect setup for you for your first like console experience. That's perfect.
Yeah, we got that thing taken away from us all the time because we played for too long.
Totally.
So the gaming side, you started with the love of gaming, and then clearly Smash Bros is really tied to you when it comes to the focus on the GameCube, because that's where it all really started for where Smash Bros is on the GameCube. I do know that. There's some nerd for you. But
there you go.
There's been a resurgence, obviously, of these old consoles, and you do a lot of restoration projects of really old stuff. Like some of your recent YouTube videos, you restored an old N64 Ultra controller. You kind of modified it for your needs specifically. But talk about the restoration side, because there is a niche with that within YouTube. It's not necessarily in the gaming consoles though. People restore like really old, TVs or radios or old furniture. You've kind of adopted that into the gaming side. Have you attracted new people because of that?
Absolutely. I mean, like if you look at a lot of my like early YouTube content, it was really surrounding like restorations, and honestly, that stuff did really well. I mean, you know, as someone, you know, who does a lot of social media stuff yourself, I mean, you can understand, like, when you first start out, you have no freaking idea what you're doing. Like, no idea. Like, you're just sitting there and you're like, hey, I got some stuff. Let me throw it at the wall and let's see what sticks. And that's kind of where I started. And some of that restoration stuff, just like, it just caught on. I was shocked by it, to be honest, but with you. And so, you know, I definitely been trying to do more of that stuff. So now kind of like my path has been like, okay, we know that works. We know the making works. We know people like that stuff, and we know people like custom things. So I'm like literally trying to bring all of that together into one thing where I can, like, for example, that video that you were just talking about, which was an awesome video. So, I mean, for those who don't know, the Ultra 64 was the code name for the N64. And so what ended up happening was at one point they were going to name it the Ultra 64, but I think because of legal reasons, they had to change the name. And so what they did is back in the day, I mean, this is obviously, I mean, the internet was around, but nothing.
No, it was baby internet days.
Yeah. It was, yeah, for sure. It was the Wild Wild West. Let's call it what it is. And so what ended up happening is, like, all this stuff ended up getting out there in magazines, and people were like seeing and experiencing this stuff in magazines. And it was all this prototype equipment that like wasn't final. And so people were like, you know, people have a lot of like, you know, nostalgia for it because of that. And so it was an awesome opportunity to take, like we talked about, take the materials, take the 3D printing, take all these different aspects and literally sit there and redesign and make something from scratch.
That's so cool. The reality is, like, every time that I get excited just by the creative process in general. It doesn't really matter which medium it is. And it's very clear that you can take an idea and then, like, you kind of ruminate on it, and then you're like, how big can I make this while still remaining true to the original idea? Like, you were pulling in old vintage footage, you're collaborating with other makers, you're casting and 3D printing new parts, but it's all still within this narrative of this, you know, restoring a controller of the Ultra 64. And I really like those offshoots within that video. So I like that you kind of taken all these eclectic things and brought them into Rocker Gaming, which is your YouTube channel, but it's also like all your other social handles. Is there any significance to the name when it comes to Rocker Gaming, or has that just been your handle since you were 5 years old and you could first start creating handles? I'm super curious around the name. If there's any, like, you know, insight you could give me.
Well, what I can tell you is, so for the first time I actually used a handle was probably like back in the Counter-Strike days of, like, I don't know, what is that, like 1998 probably? I have no idea. And the handle then was glue stick. But quickly I realized that wasn't very catchy.
That's good. That's really good.
It's pretty funny. So actually, the name Rocker Gaming, I don't know exactly where it came from, to be honest. But what I would probably say is, at some point, my brother and I were both kind of using a rocker handle. And then, and then the whole idea was to broaden that out and then make it more Rocker Gaming centric, I guess you could say. There's not really put like this, there's not a good story behind this.
That's okay. That's okay. I was just asking out of curiosity. The reality is, I liked the name. That's why I was asking. It's okay. So I'd really like to know your favorite project that you've done. And this is not, please don't plug Alumilite if it doesn't apply whatsoever. But, like, what's your favorite project you've done? And then what's one that maybe has not seen the light of day, or that was just the bane of your existence and you're like, I hate this sucker?
All right. So probably my favorite. So what I can tell you right now is, anytime I get the opportunity to collaborate, those are automatically near the top of my list, because let's be honest, as a maker, there are things you're good at and there are things you're not so good at. And what I really like is when other people want to work with me and they can bring their strengths to the table. And, like, for example, for me, like, I am not good at painting. Like, could I figure it out? Yes. Do I want to figure it out? No. Like, there are certain things where you're just like, I know I'm not going to be good at this. So, like, there are several projects that I've done with another maker. His name's Pucho Magic, and he does just top class painting. I mean, this guy's like, I mean, literally you get something back and it's like, this should have been, and I'm pretty sure he does it all in an automotive shop, because I'm like, this looks like it belongs on a car, not on a game console or a controller, right? So there's been several projects I've, like, worked with him, and I've really, really enjoyed it. So, like, there was a what is it called? A Metroid Gamecube console and controller that we made together.
Very cool.
And I think that's probably one of my favorite projects to date. Now it's hilarious because, and I'm sure you know this too, it's like as you continue to make and you pioneer new techniques and better techniques and you get better at things, like part of me wants to go back and make some tweaks and improvements to that. But like, I would say that's probably my favorite project that I've done to date, in terms of just overall scope and just what was accomplished. It was honestly a lot. So that's probably
so cool. That's so cool. Now, what was the least favorite? And you don't have to say names, but I'm super curious. Like even for you, like what thing did you have an idea of, and then the more you went down the path, you're like, this is just not working.
It's happened quite a few times. I mean, let's be honest. I think here at the end of the day, here's my problem. I sit there and I think this is a lot of makers' problems. You sit there and you're like, there's a lot I can do. And I know if I apply X, Y, and Z, I can do even more. And you're just like, okay, you know, I can do this. But then you get to a certain point, you're like, I went too far. It's too much work. It's too much effort. And I need to cut back. So like, I can give you a prime example. Well, let's see. It's November 3rd today. And I never put out my Halloween project.
Oh, okay.
And so let's just say that there was a Halloween project and a video that I wanted to make related to it. And I'm not going to lie, I could still get it done, and I probably will, because it's pretty, put it like this, I just took it way too far. Way too far. And at some point you're sitting there and it's like, you're designing things in 3D. You're 3D printing it. You are using silicone to make a mold of it. And then I was doing other things with laser cutters. And like, it's just like, at some point, it's like what we were talking about before. I got a full-time job. I got kids. It's like, I got to get this done. You know what I'm saying? But I just ran out of time. I just ran out of time. So those are the projects that I'm the most offended by. Anything that's sitting in my DIY, like to-do list or on my to-do table is what I have. Those make me mad. And I would consider a lot. And some of those are just outright failures. Cause like, hey, if I have nothing to show for it, it's like, what did I do? Or what am I spending my time on? So, it's tough. You know, you always got to balance that. It's always a balancing act. And anyway, I would consider that my big failure because it's not done.
Oh, that definitely checks out and makes a ton of sense. So another question for you around the making side of things. So
sure.
One of the cool things that we really like about makers in general is their willingness to share. And like you clearly are someone that isn't trying to hide anything when it comes to how you're creating things, which is something that we really resonate with. I mean, Alumilite exists to help people make what they want to make at the end of the day. And that's like our number one mission. Everything else falls into that category. So when we meet people like you that clearly like sharing that process, we get really excited, because especially when it's like niche and application that we just didn't know about. So how did you discover sharing, or how did you realize that this is the process that you wanted to go down when it comes to your making journey? Because not everyone shares their expertise. A lot of people are like, no, I have to keep this knowledge to myself. So why do you share?
Well, I mean, it's one of those, it's a great question. So it's kind of like I said, I used to spend a lot of time making things for individual people and selling those things, right? And then I quickly realized that by sharing and by even maybe taking things that I've made and selling those things like as kits or whatever, I can share what I do and what I make with more people, if that makes any sense. And the truth is, you know, I kind of feel like, you know, I have a certain responsibility to give back to the community as well. And so I'm more than happy to do that. I mean, it's kind of one of those things where, to me, it hasn't been about, and it kind of goes with my videos. It's not about me. It's about the projects, and it's about, you know, knowledge sharing. So it's one of those things. It's like, that's the reason why I don't really get on camera often. Cause like, I don't feel like that's important. You know what I'm saying? And so
it's not tied to your ego. Yeah,
exactly. No, I mean, like to me, this is just straight fun. Like I do this because I enjoy it, not because I have to, not because any other reason. I enjoy it. I enjoy sharing it. And I think other people, you know, hope they seem to be interested in it too. And as long as people seem interested in it, I'll continue to do it.
What a great answer, Paul. What a great answer. I mean, that's, I almost got goosebumps over here when it comes to that answer. Cause like, it's very clear that you love it, and it comes through in your videos, it comes through on your social posts, it comes through. I mean, in this interview with you, I can obviously tell that you just like it and you love it, and it's
Yeah.
You can't fake that. A lot of people I
No.
think try to, but the reality is you can't fake it. And so kudos to you for continuing to pursue those passions despite being a father and having a full-time job and being married and all the other things that come in line with that want to derail those things. But the reality is I bet that this helps make you a better father, coworker, brother, all the other things, because you get to actually live that out a little bit.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, it's like, there's a lot of stresses in life, and let's be honest, 2020 has been full of stresses. That's not a unique situation to me, but like, I guess, you're exactly right. I mean, let's think about it. Normally a lot of people would go on vacation or do other things to help relieve stress, go outside. I mean, it's like, even that stuff's been more difficult, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, this has been one of those, I would say, like, healthy distractions, you know what I mean? Especially these days. And honestly, you're right. Like, if you can satisfy, one part of your brain and other parts of you, you get better at everything you do. And so, while I'm not going to sit here and admit that I'm the best father ever or anything like that, I can tell you right now that, like, my patience is better and things like that, which is honestly the most important thing with small kids.
Yeah, I second that motion and can fully agree with that statement. Cool. Well, hey, we're kind of running out of time here, but I did want to give you the opportunity to ask Alumilite the questions or Kate and Vance questions, either one. We're obviously very closely tied. And then I'd love to leave the last thing up to you to, like, just talk about anything that you want our audience to know about.
Yeah, sure. So I think here's what I've observed about Alumilite, and let me start with that, and then you can respond to this however you want, right?
Okay.
So Alumilite has done a great job of supporting makers, and in a wide variety of different applications. And quite frankly, I think they've done a better job than some other companies without naming names. And so I guess, what is like personally, I see a lot of value in it, but what does Alumilite see, or what do you see as the value of supporting makers?
Oh, that is a fantastic question. The value of supporting makers. So going back to what I said earlier about we exist to help people make what they want to make. Mike Foppel, who is the president of the consumer division, he owned Alumilite for a lot of years. He's the reason why I'm in this job. And I think our very first phone call or our second conversation, he was very candid. I could tell he's being very honest and just forthright. He's like, hey, I just really like discovering what people like to make, and whatever I can do to support them, even if it's not with one of our products, I'm going to help them because I want to see them be successful. And I just enjoy that. And I was like, sold. I could work for this guy. Because I have a very similar bend when it comes to, like, I think people are inherently creative. And when they pursue those passions or when they pursue those creative acts, whether it's writing, whether it's in the gaming space, whether it's like things that you do, or if you're doing wood turning or you're redoing countertop, whatever, I think that those acts are very human. And I love that kind of stuff. I like seeing people become fully alive and more humane and more themselves and all. I like that process. So for Alumilite, we want to continue to support that because that's just what we want to see more of the world in. But also, like, it makes good business sense. Like,
it does.
When you actually support people and you actually care about them and their success, that is good that you're putting into the world. And that does come back monetarily. Like it's not like rocket science.
No, it's not.
It's weird. Like karma and that kind of stuff works even financially. So
it does. Yeah, no, that's a great answer. And honestly, like, it was a loaded question, but I mean, that was my exact, kind of take as well. I mean, it's just one thing that I've observed is, like, Alumilite is extremely good about supporting the makers, and, like, even just what we're doing right now. Like, I mean, this is fantastic. And quite frankly, I mean, there's not enough companies who are doing stuff like this. So I just wanted to say that I appreciate what you guys are doing.
Well, hey, I just will say thanks on behalf of the entire team and all of Alumilite when it comes to that. And the Polytech family that is above Alumilite. So I really appreciate that, man. It's really cool. And we love doing it. I mean, the reality is, well, I wouldn't be here if I didn't. So,
Yeah, fair.
but no, we do love it, and we have a riot supporting everybody, and we're having a lot of fun with these Maker Mondays because it's really cool to get to like know the people behind the craft in all the different arenas that we've gone down. So, with that in mind, what things do you have coming up that you're excited about? Who do you want to give a shout out to? Who do you want to what do you want to let the people know?
Yeah, I mean, I guess all I'd say is if you're looking and you're interested in video games, feel free to check out me on, YouTube or Twitter or Instagram. I'm posted on there quite often. But yeah, I mean, I don't really have much else to plug other than the PS5 is coming out on November 12th, and I might already have a controller for it. So I've already started modding it. So if you're interested in seeing my potential failures, we can add to the list of failures. Feel free to check it out because I'll definitely post a video on that.
Sweet, man. Well, cool. I really appreciate taking time to do this podcast, and definitely go follow Rocker Gaming on all the different channels that he just mentioned: Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, etc. And if you order any products through Alumilite's website, you can use his code, which is Rocker10, right? Okay.
Yes.
Rocker10, and Paul will receive a commission based off of that. So definitely use that. And yeah, that's it, man. I really appreciate your time.
All right. Thank you. Really appreciate it.